get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Guys, for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by TWSN, the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host, as always, 𝗦𝗡𝗢𝗎𝗪, and my guy, our guy. You know, couldn't be a Friday if Michael Harrell wasn't joining us either virtually or in studio here for Fantasy Football Fridays. Our fantasy guy here at TWSN, Michael Harrell, joining us, came all the way down from where? Columbus?
The outskirts of Columbus.
The
outskirts.
Nah. So you're a fraud, basically. You don't really live.
Nah, I live like 15 minutes from downtown.
Right, so you're a fraud. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. I'm a fraud too. I don't live directly in Cincinnati, in the city anymore, but it's okay. Anyway, we want to thank you guys for tuning in, making us this show a part of your regular routine. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live, when we upload content. A little bit of a late start, some technical difficulties on my end. Apologize for that, but we want to keep the conversation going. Listen, Tua Tagovailoa had some words. He had some words for Cam Newton, who obviously, I guess, has been a little bit critical of him. The exact quote, I don't want to butcher this, but the exact quote was something along the lines of, I would like to see anyone come off the street and do this, essentially. It's easy to be, have a clicker in your hands. And he says, he did say Cam Newton does a great job of what he's doing, but it feels like maybe the media scrutiny or the scrutiny from former players or people alike is starting to get to Tua Tagovailoa. Before we get into that, before I asked Daniel about his main guy, that was Daniel's MVP candidate going into the season.
Oh,
I wanna have Marissa play the video.
And he makes $53 million. You know what I mean? Because they do. They always say that. I heard Cam Newton say it the other day.
Well, anybody can play quarterback in this league then. I mean, I want to see anybody on the streets come and play quarterback. I mean, Cam's doing his thing for sure, but I think it's easier to be able to hold a clicker and talk about it that way, or talk about what someone else is doing wrong when you're not going out and having to do the same as them, right? So I think it's easy to do that. I think anybody can do that.
Well, I didn't have this on my bingo card this morning, me defending Cam Newton, but I'll tell you right now, that is a former league MVP you're talking about. That is a guy that has appeared in Super Bowls. That is a dude who literally put up 40 some odd touchdowns, passing and rushing in a season. He's put together one of the more dominant seasons we've ever seen in NFL history. He also is probably arguably, he put together one of the most dominant college football careers as a quarterback as well at Auburn. You're talking as if this is a dude who played in high school, had success in college, got to the NFL, it didn't work out, so they basically went to media. You're speaking about him as if he's Dan Orlovsky, respectfully. And even that, I would still push back on. The thought behind Tua Tagovailoa dying on this hill of, Cam Newton, blah, 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 anyone can talk, and, it's easy to have a clicker, as if this dude didn't dominate, as if this dude was not the number one overall pick in his respective draft, as if this dude, did not make a career of his own here in the NFL. To me, it's Tua, you're still trying to master the franchise quarterback part, even though the team has already said, you know what, we're going to give you more autonomy. We're going to give you an extension, even though I don't necessarily believe it was deserved. It was an extension given in good faith of what you possibly could do. I have so many issues with Tua singling out Cam Newton here. And I understand maybe the reporter kind of led that way, but there's a player code there. There's, all respect to Cam, I just got to go out there, I got to work hard. There's so many things Tua Tagovailoa could have said, but instead you decided to choose the path of least resistance. You decided to bring up the fact that he's no longer a player. Newsflash to him. Players get older. Players fall from an athleticism standpoint are no longer the athletes that they used to be. So 100%, Cam's play style was never going to be a play style that was going to allow him to be in the NFL longer than what he was. But that all being said, I was really baffled by Tua's talk. So the residential Tua stand, Danny, I got to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, listen, man, it's wraps for my boy. It is. There's a couple things I want to talk about, but I've got kind of a rule of thumb of when you start calling out former players, it's over, man. Like what are we doing? For me, and this goes beyond what he just said here, like, what are we doing, Tua? There was even in the same exact press conference, he went out and somebody asked him about his legs, his usage of his legs in Alabama. He said very candidly, and I respect him for being open, but he was like, listen, after my surgery, it just hasn't been the same. Like, you saw what I did in Alabama and you can see what I do now. And he clearly said, there's residue in my ankle. It just hasn't been the same. So for me, I'm looking at Tua and I'm looking at the organization. I'm like, you are outright saying, and once again, respect him for being honest, but you're saying, hey, I am not that guy that I was at college. I am not the guy that the Miami Dolphins paid me $200-something million for. I am not that guy. And he's even said, and once again, respect for him being honest, but he's like, Josh Allen, I can't do that stuff. So it's like, I have a hard time, believing right now in Tua, in just his all-around confidence of being a superstar quarterback. And that goes to this point about him versus Cam Newton. Once again, I understand if he feels like he's backed up against a corner, he probably feels that everybody's hating on him, from players to fans to people in the media. But to go out there and say the same thing to Cam Newton, who was a former league MVP, for a guy who has accomplished more in his NFL career than Tua probably will ever accomplish, it just isn't a very good look, especially for a team right now who is 0-3. And I just don't think Tua's done himself any favors with his play or with the way he's been talking. And like I said, he's been very candid this season, which is interesting. And I see a lot of people who are kind of bashing on him, saying, oh, well, it's the concussions talking. Like, I don't know what it is with Tua. I think he's backed himself into a corner, and quite frankly, he is just making himself look, I think he's making himself look like a fool, to be honest with you. And that's from the expectation of being a superstar quarterback. If this was, just a regular starting quarterback talking about what he said about his ankle, sure. But this is a guy who was expected and is paid as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And number one, you're not backing it up. And number two, you're going out and talking to Cam Newton like he's some bum. I don't know. For me, I just don't think Tua has any room to stand on right now, to be honest with you.
Wait, one thing I just want to talk about real quick. I hope nobody is bringing up, Tua's unfortunate concussions and, as a meanings to, I guess, justify his talk. The one thing I will say on that, Daniel, is I'm going to push back on something.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about Tua, essentially getting paid like he was a superstar quarterback, and he's basically just need to focus on that. Here's the thing: Tua doesn't need to be a franchise quarterback. Tua doesn't need to be a superstar quarterback. That's not what anyone is expecting of him anymore. He's dealt with the injuries. What everyone was saying is when Tua went down with his injuries, we all wanted what was best for Tua, whether that meant continue playing football or not playing football. We all wanted what was best for him. But when we realized he would still play football, okay, well, can you just be competent?
Yep.
Can you just be a game? Can you do the job well? Can you do the small things really, really well? And those are the things that Tua has struggled with. There's no secret. Tua doesn't need to come out and tell us, hey, I don't run anymore because of my injuries. No, that's okay. And that's very evident. That's a very realistic reason why you don't run. You also don't run anymore because of the injuries you've also dealt with in the National Football League. That is okay. No one is expecting, at least I hope Daniel's not. I hope nobody is expecting Tua to perform like a superstar quarterback at this point of his career when he has dealt with those injuries, when his longevity has been such a hot topic, with him staying on the field has been such a hot topic. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to talk about right now. No one wants to have this conversation, but I'll have it for you. The Giants just benched a quarterback in Russell Wilson, but I've got a hot take for you. I think Russell Wilson at this point is better than Tua Tagovailoa. I think at this point, right now, as we stand, I think Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. I think if you put Russell Wilson in the Miami Dolphins offense, I'd have more faith in him because at least he'd give Tyreek Hill, at least he'd give Jalen Waddle those opportunities to make plays. Also, the offense wouldn't have to be so tailored to getting to the quick game, essentially. That is how I feel in regards to Tua. When I watch those, I said to myself, you know what? The drop off between the two isn't that far, to be honest with you. I think that if Tua's hoping to, I guess, regain any sort of momentum in his career at the quarterback position, I think you'd hope that he turned into a Russell Wilson. You'd hope that he turned into a guy that can manage the game, that will throw a couple deep passes, and that'll just manage the game that way. That's okay to be. But I said the Russell Wilson Tua Tagovailoa comparison, not to disparage Tua, but more so to say that I think at this point, that is who he is closer to versus the guy he's responding to. I think he is closer to Russell Wilson than he is to Cam Newton. But here's the thing. Both of those guys have Super Bowl appearances. And the guy that I'm comparing you to, guess what? He won a Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, too, there's a long way you got to go there. This is my thoughts. Daniel, I want to give you a chance to respond, but I want
no.
You go respond.
Yeah, for me, I think like there's twofold for that. Number one, like you said, nobody's expecting him to be a superstar. And this is where I think my frustration before and why I defended him so hard was because I felt like that was the conversation, right? I felt like everybody was holding him to, hey, even when he had that season with the Miami Dolphins, hey, well, you are not a superstar. You are not going out there using your legs. So for me, I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? Like, this dude is leading a top 2 offense. This dude is leading a number 1 passing offense. They are, 10-6. They are heading into the playoffs. They won 5 straight games. So for me, I was like, I don't need him to be a superstar. But that's what I felt, and that's why I defended him so hard, because everybody's like, well, he doesn't use his legs. He doesn't play outside the system. Well, for now, the conversation's kind of flipped. And it's like, hey, they paid him to be that superstar quarterback. So I'm like, hey, now that's the expectation. You paid him like a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. You paid him more than all these other guys. You paid him at the same tier of Herbert. You paid him at the same tier of Love, of Joe Burrow. So that's what I was expecting. And now I look at him, like I said, it's at this point, I think their entire team is a shit show. And I don't know if Russell Wilson's better than him right now. I think that he could maybe perform better. But I think, once again, this entire team is a shit show. I think that Tua did a fine job of putting them in the position to win the last game, and he turned it over. And I think Russell Wilson honestly would do the same exact thing if he were in this situation. The only issue I have is the contract. And to be honest, Malik, I don't have an answer for you. I don't have an answer for what they do, because you are tied to that contract. Like, are you going to trade him? Are you going to release him? They are stuck in that contract because that's the situation they put themselves in. And for me,
I'm sure there's an out clause.
Not till 2027. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah,
like
there's not an injury. There's not an injury. Well, there might be. There's got to be an injury clause, because that's what injury settlement is for. That's what the NFLPA is there for. Essentially protect players. There's no way the Dolphins signed him to, especially a guy like Tua who's dealt with so many injuries, signed him to a blank contract and said, yeah, you're good. There's got to be
maybe if there's a major injury.
Yeah,
but like, for right now, man, it's
if things just kind of go along how they are, they've really dug themselves in a really, really deep hole. And the thing that Malik kind of touched on that's been problematic to me, and you kind of hit on as well, Daniel, is like, yes, Tua plays within the system, but in my opinion, it is still a very, very good system that highlights the abilities of playmakers, makes things easy on Tua Tagovailoa. It's really just like a kind of point and click thing. He doesn't have to do a lot other than make the reads and then execute. But the thing that, just like watching these games, especially that game in primetime where everyone was watching and the microscope was on the Dolphins, I thought the Dolphins offense looked solid, a lot better than they looked in the first 2 weeks. But he just wasn't making the downfield throws. I mean, like, those were the throws that you would see him make in 2023. Waddle, Hill, they have space, but instead he's just shaking it off, and he's throwing the check down to 𝗪𝗏𝗡. He's just not even attempting to make this the explosive offense that it once was. And you can say what you want about Tyreek Hill. I've been vocal about losing a step, whether or not he actually has. But Tua is just not displaying the aggressiveness, whether that be a confidence issue or just the chemistry with him and Tyreek Hill in particular, those kind of storylines and narratives that were talked about throughout the offseason. But altogether, it's just he's trying to run this offense through checkdowns. He's trying to run it through a pass catching running back and just a bunch of underneath stuff. And like Malik said, the quick game, and that works to a degree in the NFL these days. But when you have Mike McDaniel calling and scheming the play, scheming the offense, and you have Tyreek Hill, and I know he's getting up there, but still very much one of the quicker and faster wide receivers in the NFL. And you have Jalen Waddle, who's displayed some really, really promising traits over the years and has been a highly productive receiver. You just have to take those downfield looks, especially given just the situation of this defense and the team as a whole. I mean, this is one of those offenses that is going to have to score 3+ touchdowns every single week if they're going to be in football games. And if Tua Tagovailoa is not willing to take those looks, take those risks, and I understand why he's not wanting to take the risks, because sometimes it's blown up in his face, especially late in games this season. But I mean, that's not really necessarily a risk-taking thing. It's more that he just somehow doesn't see the biggest guy on the football field in his line of vision 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. But that's another point. But I just think Tua's mentality has to change if this offense is going to even somewhat resemble what we saw in 2023. And so far, he's just kind of stuck in autopilot and just not willing to kind of just to take the risks, take the chances.
Yeah, completely. It's kind of sad to see where they're at. And like I said, who knows what happens the rest of the season. But I feel like if they were going to turn it around, I feel like they would have needed that game.
Absolutely.
I think that was the game that, hey, if we were to see Mike McDaniel potentially stay, that was the one that you say, hey, you turn it around 1-2. Okay. Then you start to reel off some wins. Then you face the Patriots. Maybe you win one of those divisional games. At this point, I think it's wraps, and you got to just take it week by week, because these guys, McDaniel and even Tua, I think you guys could be fighting for your job, and you just hope to see them have some sort of.
What are they, 0-3?
They're 0-3 right now.
Yeah. So, and who they got coming up this week?
I believe the Patriots, but I could be wrong. It is the.
Well, the Patriots you're very high on.
I am.
For no
I'm
reason
not for no
particular.
reason. No,
Right.
not for no reason.
No. I was
The
being
Jets.
facetious a little bit there. They have the Jets this week, but that's
The
a win they
Jets.
can get.
And then
Absolutely.
the Panthers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't speak on the Panthers just that way anymore. The Panthers look like they might be turning a corner, but every time we think the Panthers are turning a corner, guess what? They're actually not. But guess who's turning the corner? We are. So we're going to go to the next topic here. We're going to go from one quarterback to another quarterback. Let's go to Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, yes, the third string who can't even get active on game days. The third string quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, who had a lot to say. Take a listen.
Nothing, in my place to answer. That's nothing I can't not answer, but I know for sure I'm not. I know if you see the quarterback play in the league right now, I know I'm capable of doing better than that.
So Shedeur Sanders basically says he takes a look around the league and he sees the quarterback play and he believes that he's better than that. Talk to me, guys. What do you guys make of Shedeur Sanders' comments? You know what? Me and Danny have been talking a lot. Mike, let's start with you.
I mean, this is going to be blunt,
Mhm.
but I really don't care that much about Shedeur Sanders. I mean, like I've been of the belief that, yeah, this is a guy that should get a shot in the NFL. And I'm kind of I agree with him to a degree. I think my personal belief is in the Cleveland Browns quarterback room, he is the only viable option of a player who can lead this team into the future. But it's quite clear for one reason or another that the NFL doesn't believe that way. I mean, you can just kind of tell Kevin Stefanski just doesn't want to be dealing with this. Doesn't want to be asked no one is asking more questions about the emergency reserve quarterback than Kevin Stefanski. No one is being asked that many questions about their third quarterback. It's just, it obviously we all know why. It's like a media frenzy type of deal, the name, the family connection, and just kind of the historic draft day fall. But until we see that NFL teams have a genuine interest in getting Shedeur Sanders on the football field, I mean, to me, it's just kind of just an afterthought talking point. And I understand why people care about it. It just really doesn't move the needle for me. I mean,
well, damn, way to just rain on the whole show topics, Mike. Mr. Debbie Downer over there. Damn.
It's like, what? I understand the interest, but it's an emergency third QB that nobody can. I think he should be active ahead of Dillon Gabriel. I see why Kevin Stefanski likes Dillon Gabriel. He thinks he can execute a system. He thinks he can properly facilitate the offense, get the ball into the hands of the playmakers. But I mean, Dillon Gabriel, really, like this guy is not going to be a long-term NFL starting quarterback. I think in college, Shedeur showed some of those traits. I understand why people were lower on him and why he fell in the draft. But yeah, this is just a headache in Cleveland. And I don't think that the coaching staff has any interest in getting this guy onto the field anytime soon, even though I think he should. I do think that this was a pick driven by the executives in Cleveland. I think that's pretty clear at this point. Honestly, it's not even just a I think kind of thing. I think it's pretty obvious. But at the end of the day, it's the coaching. It's Stefanski and company who are going to be deciding who's active on game days, who's getting the reps, who's where everyone shakes out on the depth chart. So, I mean, the rumblings of a trade have been discussed since he was drafted, basically. I mean, there were guys on radio in Cleveland in August saying, like, if this guy's not even going to get reps in practice, what is he doing here? And I agree with that sentiment. I mean, I would like to see Shedeur Sanders on an NFL football field playing for a team. But, I mean, until he is, I mean, this is just kind of a sideshow type of deal, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah, man, this is it's fun to talk about because they are making themselves a big story. Like, you got Shiloh Sanders being an entertainer, and then you got Deion Sanders coming on the podcast with Travis Kelce and saying, hey, well, the Eagles called, and they're just making waves. They're making news. And Shedeur Sanders, I do believe that at some point he is going to get a chance. And I think that
he should.
This is exactly why he wanted Cleveland versus the Ravens or versus the Eagles.
The tough part is that the coaching staff hates him.
And that's the thing. Like Kevin Stefanski, it's like you said, he's very clear. He is one of the guys that doesn't want a whole lot to do with that. And it's clear that, hey, the Andrew Berry stuff, or whether it's above of Jimmy Haslam, those are the guys that really pushed for Shedeur Sanders to be drafted. And I respect his confidence. Like, that's what you're going to get with Shedeur Sanders. And quite frankly, I don't blame him for saying that. He's probably in the camp that, hey, I just want to play, man. And I feel like I'm better than Dillon Gabriel. I feel like I'm better than Tyrod Taylor. I feel like I'm better than Spencer Rattler. Okay, it's okay to believe that.
And that's what you want to see, honestly.
Yes. And that's, for me, it gives me some hope if I were a Browns fan of, hey, because Joe Flacco is not going to be here in 2 years. He's not. So what is your plan moving forward? Is it Dillon Gabriel?
Can't be.
And if it's Dillon Gabriel, you are looking at it the completely wrong way. Is it drafting a quarterback next year? Okay, I'm cool with that. But at some point this season, Shedeur Sanders needs a chance.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this for a second. Yeah. You know, you talked about Andrew Berry, and I don't believe Shedeur Sanders was a pick of Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski.
Really?
They didn't look super enthusiastic when they drafted him.
100% could have been Haslam.
This 100% reeks of Jimmy Haslam, who believes he is Ohio's version of Jerry Jones. He believes that he can, get people hyped and draw a lot of eyes. Let me tell you something right now. What you did when you draft Shedeur Sanders, and I love what my man NoFo Joe says in the comment section. He says, how you act as an NFL quarterback does matter. If Sanders went through the process with a different mindset, things would have played out differently. Is he a franchise guy? I don't know. He said, but the drama does hurt his chances. I agree with him. I think he cooked right there. Part I want to add on to that is, anytime you draft a Shedeur Sanders and you decide to not make that guy a starter, let alone even active on game days, right? He's the emergency quarterback. You knew what was going to come with this. You knew the conversation. And just to the reporter who interviewed Shedeur Sanders in the locker room, if you're interviewing a third string quarterback who's not active on game days, who was early on in the draft process, people thought he was a first round pick. Some even talked about him in the top 10 pick, fell away to what, 5th round, gets to Cleveland, doesn't really get a shake to really prove himself. And you're interviewing him in the locker room, you are looking for a headline, and you got it. You got this guy pretty much saying that he believes he's better than a lot of the quarterbacks in the National Football League, and he's going to believe that. Of course he's going to believe that. But you know what I will say to add on to what NoFo Joe says? I'll never say another quarterback can't be a guy in Cleveland. I didn't say it with Baker before, but I will tell you right now, seeing what the Cleveland Browns had in Baker Mayfield and what they lost since they moved on from Baker Mayfield, well, the results haven't been pretty. And you look at Baker Mayfield, he's gone on to resurrect his career and have a damn good run with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dare I say he's their franchise quarterback right now?
Yes.
You know, so if he can do it, this is a guy that everybody was down on in Cleveland, got benched a few times in Cleveland. Well, guess what? There's nothing stopping from Shedeur Sanders at some point going to another team and proving himself. I agree with you, Daniel. I think the opportunity will come. I don't know if it's going to come this year, but I also don't think it's going to be with the Cleveland Browns. And if it is with the Cleveland Browns, it might be well after the Cleveland Browns are eliminated from playoff contention. Just my thoughts. But then you have to ask yourself, is that really a fair shake?
Yeah.
Is that a fair shake?
I think it's very clear. If it's in Cleveland, it has to happen this season. It has to, because the only way this happens is, once again, if they are bad. And if they are good, then they're not going to be picking, top 10, and they're not going to be playing Shedeur Sanders. If they are 6, 7, 8 win team heading into the final couple weeks of the season, they're not playing Shedeur Sanders. No. And that's the problem I have, because like you said, if that's the case and he doesn't play this season, I'm very confident he would be traded elsewhere.
It's not an honest assessment. That's what it is. It's not an honest assessment if you decide to keep Shedeur, if you decide to give Shedeur a chance well after your chances have been eliminated. But let us know down in the comment section what you guys think. I think the Shedeur Sanders conversation is going to be one that's going to take so many twists and turns, and so it's going to just be interesting. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. I want to head on over to our I think I'm going to start us over to our fantasy football talk. Listen, this can't be Fantasy Football Fridays if we don't have Michael Hara in the building and we don't have Steve Bradshaw as well. Something I want to touch on is we're going to get to our Lamar Jackson conversation, because I feel like that is a very, very, very interesting topic, because you start to see people talk more and more about Lamar Jackson and the Ravens and if they're failing him. But we're going to get to that right after this. So without further ado, I want to bring our guy, Steve Bradshaw, in for our fantasy talk. What's going on, Steve?
How's it going?
Good. I thought you'd be a little more hyped.
How's it going?
The Dallas Cowboys lost to your Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams looked like a guy. Ben Johnson was hyped up. I thought you'd have a little more energy right now. You're kind of bringing me down a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it was a 1-for-2 weekend because as an Illinois student and fan, that game also happened against Indiana. So, and it's also the Cowboys we're talking about. So not taking too much stock into that, to be honest. So being a little pessimistic there, but it was great to see. I did love finally seeing a quarterback that could throw the ball like 60 yards downfield accurately for probably the first time in my life. So, you're right. I should be a little more positive, but losing by 50 points to Indiana was and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this much. It don't matter. No one expected Illinois to do anything this year anyway. So it's okay. We can put our focus and our attention on your Chicago Bears. This was a good morale booster for your team, for Ben Johnson getting his first win and getting his first home win right in front of Chicago's faithful. And you might not rate the win, but guess what? The ESPNs of the world, the national media companies that put this company on a pedestal, guess what? They are literally going crazy because the Chicago Bears beat the Dallas Cowboys. And now people are talking about you guys. You guys are putting more eyes on the product that Ben Johnson has. And I don't know. I'm excited to see what comes of, your Chicago Bears and all. But enough of that. Let's get to some fantasy football talk. Drop your fantasy football questions in the comment section. These guys are going to get to it. The law firm, O'Hara, Bradshaw. Daniel, take it away.
Awesome. So let's go 2 starts, 2 sits. We'll start with Steve. Give us your favorite start, and then we will obviously go with some of the questions down below. But Steve, who's your favorite start of the week?
So for this week, I'm going with TreVeyon Henderson, a little bit outside the top 24 running backs, but I think it's finally time for him to break out. He's been, in the buzz all week after getting, last week you saw Antonio Gibson fumble the ball, Ramondre Stevenson fumbled the ball twice, and it's not like that's just like a one-time thing either. These have players have both had fumbling issues in the past. And then recently there was like a report that came out where TreVeyon Henderson was taking first team reps or first in line for these running back drills essentially. So it looks like that is coming to fruition, on top of the fact that he had a season high in snap percentage and rushing attempts last week. So it seems like everything is shaping up for TreVeyon Henderson to finally have his breakout game. And even though he hasn't actually really been productive at all this year, I'm still trusting in the talent. He is a phenomenal player. He was drafted that high in the NFL draft for a reason. The Patriots offense isn't great, but, Drake May has looked fine. You got Kayshon Boutte looking okay in week 1 and enough pieces around him to where, if you need an RB2 this week and you drafted TreVeyon Henderson, I think now is probably the last time you can feel good about putting him in your starting lineup, unless, he needs to prove it. If he has a bad week this week, then you have to bench him until further notice. But for now, this is the last week you can say, I'm starting TreVeyon Henderson. The opportunity is there. The Panthers should be a game where the Patriots can run the ball as well and, use him in that short passing game. I'm starting TreVeyon Henderson this week.
Love it. Love it. Mike, who you got?
Yeah, so TreVeyon Henderson was on my list as well. You can go check out my full write-up on why I think he's a solid start on TWSN.net. But with Steve stealing my thunder there a little bit, I'll move on to Matthew Golden, Packers rookie wide receiver. And personally, I wasn't really that high on Matthew Golden coming into the NFL season. I was actually very low. I thought it was a bad pick by the Packers. I remain skeptical of his ability to be that true wide receiver 1 that they drafted him to be and hoped that he would be. But at the same time, I do think he is a worthwhile look in fantasy football leagues this year. One of the main reasons I didn't like the pick in real life, I didn't like the draft pick in fantasy drafts as well. One of the main reasons why is we have seen time and time again in the last couple of years, Matt LaFleur deploy a disgusting rotation of wide receivers. And that held true for the first couple of weeks of the season. And then the script completely flipped once Jayden Reed went down, and he is going to be sidelined indefinitely. So without Jayden Reed in the mix, this was a 3 wide receiver team last week against the Browns. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly. But the role is really there for Matthew Golden. He played 71% of the routes. Only 3 wide receivers in Green Bay eclipsed a 13% route share. And then Matthew Golden was on the field for 2 wide receiver sets. So even if they're going to 12 personnel, they're getting 2 tight ends on the field. He's going to be out there. They've been bumping. Last week they bumped Dontavian Wicks off the field. So we know this guy can be a downfield burner. He can make the splash plays. And against the Dallas Cowboys this week, I mean, you've got to like your chances. I know that their group of cornerbacks is getting healthier. I believe that Diggs and Deron Bland are slated to be playing this week, just based on practice reports. But still, this is a defense that we want to take advantage of. I'm not putting too much stock into the Packers' offensive performance last week. I think that's just a symptom of the Browns' really, really elite defense. And so I'm just leaning into the usage here and just hoping that we can get a couple of explosive plays out of Matthew Golden this week.
For sure. So let's go to Steve, your other start, and then we'll go to Sits. And we got a question down below we'll get to right after.
Yeah, it's funny because I also had Golden as my wide receiver start, so it looks like we both are on the same page there. But another player that I like this week, not super underrated, but still not being viewed as like a top wide receiver, is Chris Olave. I think we talked about him before, but relative to where you drafted Olave, like in my home league on ESPN, I got him as my first wide receiver off the bench. He was going in round 7-8, so it's not like people had crazy high expectations, but throughout the first three weeks, hasn't had a game yet with less than 10 targets, 13, 10, 14. And while the fantasy points haven't necessarily been out of this world, last week he finally caught, a good majority of his targets for 10 receptions and only 57 yards, in the words of Michael O'Hara, a PPR scam, to turn into 15.7 points. And I just don't really see that slowing down this week. I really feel like you can confidently start Olave in your flex at this point, if not your wide receiver 2 spot, especially this week against the Buffalo Bills. I don't even know exactly what the spread is, but I know the Bills are going to blow the Saints out of the water. just like they've kind of been doing to a lot of other teams, and the Saints have been falling behind. And the Saints are just going to be passing the ball a ton, which is going to give Olave increased targets, increased receptions, and hopefully he'll actually, if he can even be a bit more productive and have more than 5.7 yards per reception, like he could easily drop 20 points this week. So big fan of Olave there, as the Bills are officially 15.5-point favorites right now on FanDuel. So favors the Saints passing game quite a bit for fantasy.
For sure. 1 point on that too. I watched the Saints game last week, and it is very concerning, but it's also exciting for fantasy owners. This team, they just throw the hell out of the ball, especially the 15.5-point spread. I'm a big fan. I think Olave's getting 10 to 15 targets this week. But Mike, you got another start? We can go to sits.
Yeah, I'll give a couple quick hitters here. Just some fringe guys that you should definitely be considering getting in your lineup. I think Chris Rodriguez is a guy that should just roster him. Don't plan on starting him this week, but 𝗕𝗓𝗧𝗓𝗦𝗡 misses 2 practices in a row to open the week. So just get this guy on your bench. If Krosky-Merritt doesn't play, this moves to a 2-headed monster instead of a 3-headed monster. And we saw him get a bulk of the base work, a lot of the rushing work to open the game, and then mix in throughout. But I do think that even if Marcus Mariota is leading the show, this can be an offense that sustains drives and keeps things rolling. And the expectation, especially with Krosky-Merritt not playing, would be that Rodriguez is getting the goal line work. So there's just some touchdown equity there for Chris Rodriguez. And just if Merritt doesn't play, there's just more touches to go around for these 2 running backs. And then the other one that I'll throw out there is Christian Kirk against the Tennessee Titans. I mean, heading into the waiver wire period this week, he was like 20% owned in ESPN leagues. So he's not even rostered, but I think he's worth a nod this week. In his first game back from injury, I mean, he was heavily utilized within the offense. I mean, he was their go-to wide receiver too, and he drew over 20% of the targets. So I think that this is a good spot for the Texans offense against the Tennessee Titans. And we've seen that Christian Kirk is already clearly running ahead of the 2 rookies that he drafted, should get enough volume to sustain meaningful production in PPR leagues this week.
Love it. Question from Logan Sitdown said, Rashid Shaheed, Calvin Ridley, or Devontae Turpin, who would you guys start? And then we'll go to quick sits for you guys.
Yeah, for me, I think it's pretty clearly Rashid Shaheed. I know that Turpin is like an improved outlook without CeeDee Lamb in the mix, but I just still don't really view him as a true legitimate wide receiver. I think he's just more of that gadget guy. You're hoping he gets a downfield look. And I know that Shaheed is perceived in a similar light. But I just do think he is a more well-rounded and actual wide receiver in comparison to Turpin. On Ridley's side, it's been really, really tough sledding for Ridley thus far. The offense as a whole has looked rough. Ridley as a whole has looked pretty rough. I don't think Ridley is playing well. I expect it to be better across the course of the season. I mean, it just can't really be much worse than this. But a matchup against the Texans, he's almost certainly going to be seeing a lot of Derek Stingley. The ferocious Texans pass rush, probably going to create a lot of problems for Cam Ward, who's been pressured at the highest, at one of the highest rates among all quarterbacks this year. And then Shaheed, I mean, we talked about it. This game is going to be conducive for a lot of dropbacks for Spencer Rattler. Shaheed's been seeing targets all over the field. He's getting those downfield looks. He's seeing those intermediate looks. We even saw them drawing up a quick hitter for him at the goal line a couple of weeks ago. So I do think that Shaheed's ceiling is similar to that of Turpin, but just a pretty safe floor and a favorable game environment for him.
Love it. All right, Steve, give us your flag plant for the guy that is going to have a bad week or a guy that you are avoiding this week.
Yeah, one player that I'm not starting is Nick Chubb, and I feel like that should be obvious, but the reason I bring this up is because I was just scrolling around ESPN, and he had his projection for this week is 12.8 points, so I just don't want anyone to see this and be like, oh, it's time to plug Nick Chubb in as my RB2 when I'm not sure like where that has come from. He had 9 carries last week. His best game was in week 2 where he had 15.2 points, but that was because he literally just had that one breakaway touchdown, which, to be quite honest, he didn't even look very explosive or good on. Like, I wouldn't bet on that happening again. And then other than that, it's 6 points, 7 points. Like, just you can't trust Nick Chubb as a starting running back at this point. As much as I think everyone would love to see him kind of, get back to his prime, it's quite clear that those days are past him, even against the Titans. And I think that's probably why people are propping him up. He's just not that guy at this point to where you can put him in your RB2 spot and feel comfortable. If you drafted Nick Chubb, it just seems like you have to have a better option than that. Even if it's like a Trevion Henderson, you're talking about, I want a bit more of a safe play. I think Nick Chubb's going to be a safe play because of the matchup. I think the type of player he is at this point and the lack of production overall across the season warrants him, being on your bench unless you see him go out there and string together multiple 12, 13-point performances and just look better as a football player.
I completely agree. Mike, you got any sit before we switch it up?
Yeah, I'll go with another running back here. The guy that I had down was Chuba Hubbard, Carolina Panthers running back, ahead of a matchup with the New England Patriots. I mean, Hubbard, it is what it is. He's going to get most of the rushing work. He's going to get mixed in as a receiver here and there. But this is he was a popular sell candidate among fantasy analysts heading into this week. And I think that he's a worthwhile sell. And I think if you have options, I think he's a worthwhile bench this week. I mean, the Panthers are down 2 interior offensive linemen, both on IR, their center and their right guard, I believe, Robert Hunt. And then that makes it tough to begin with. And then it's just not an appealing matchup whatsoever. I know you guys on a show, I believe it was yesterday morning, talking about Milton Williams and how he's been playing with the Patriots so far this season. I mean, this interior defensive line for the Patriots has been playing quite well. They have been among the premier rush defenses in the NFL this season. They're allowing just 2.8 yards per carry, which is the second best mark in the NFL. So they've been clogging up the rushing lanes. They've been keeping running backs in check. And I really just think that this is kind of just a touchdown or bust bet with Chuba Hubbard. Obviously, if they do get down close to the goal line, that's who they're going to go to with on the 1 or the 2. But it's just a pretty brutal matchup. I mean, this is just kind of one of those games where if he doesn't have a touchdown, you're just going to be staring at it. You're going to be like, well, that was 16 yards for 68 carries, and maybe he got a catch or two, but why did I start this guy? Like, it was just tough sledding all day long, just unable to generate explosives. So if you have another option, I think that he's a worthwhile sit this week.
Awesome.
He's also dealing with a calf injury, so I wouldn't touch that at all. I wouldn't trust Chuba Hubbard this week. Anyway, thank you guys. I appreciate the fantasy football content as always. Steve, I got to ask you and Mike, because you both were kind of mum on it. How are your fantasy football teams doing? Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask.
My first round pick is CeeDee Lamb, so I feel like I have kind of an excuse there. My home
there's never an excuse when it comes to fantasy football.
Yeah, no, never.
Anyway,
Overall, across the board, not too bad. But my main home league that I always keep talking about, CeeDee Lamb goes down, and it's put me in quite the predicament.
Is it 1 and 2 or 0 and 3?
No, it's 1 and 2.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we want to thank y'all, man. Appreciate the law firm coming on here, giving out the fantasy football advice. Hopefully it's a profitable week for you guys. Wishing you guys fantasy football teams the best of luck, especially all of you in the comment section. Steve, best of luck this week to your Bears as well, my man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. We'll talk here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Want to go from one conversation to the other. Before we go to our week 4 best bets, I do want to talk about Lamar Jackson. The conversation I want to have around that is, are the Ravens failing Lamar? That is a conversation that is happening right now. But before I give my thoughts, I want to shift the thoughts to Daniel.
Are the Ravens failing Lamar Jackson? It's a loaded question. I think it's possible, sure, that you look at certain positions and you say they could be doing more, whether it is the offensive line, whether it is the defense. But I don't think so, man. I don't. And the reason why I say that is this is the damn NFL. Like, these are games and these are plays that you need to be coming out and winning. And quite frankly, I'm also not panicking if I'm the Ravens, right? I think the one conversation, I don't know where you guys stand on it, but if you were to say that they're failing Lamar is because of a John Harbaugh and is because of how they perform with a lead, I think that is something that you can question. I think that is something that you can't just pinpoint on Lamar, because I felt like Lamar, whether it was the Bills game or whether it was games in the past last season, where it wasn't his fault. The Bills game, quite frankly, you look at that and say, hey, Derrick Henry doesn't fumble that. They are running away with that game. So that wasn't fully on Lamar. And they put up 40 points. So you can't blame Lamar Jackson for it. But I'm not necessarily panicking. The reason why I'm going to say no, and it's a wholeheartedly no, is because we've seen this team at the brightest stages, at the biggest moments, and they faltered, right? And you look at last year's playoffs, I look at Lamar Jackson, and quite frankly, I blame him for a lot of that. I look at how he performed in the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills. And yes, Mark Andrews dropped a 2-point conversion, but let's talk about what happened before that. I believe it was a fumble. I believe it was at least one interception. And these are the plays I feel like Lamar hasn't made in crunch time. And for me, I look at this, they're still going to be a 10-win team this season, and they're still going to make the playoffs. And I look at how they've invested in the defense, pure talent-wise, and that's where I will say they aren't failing him, because they're at least trying, right? They're going out, they're adding who's who. They're going out, they're adding DeAndre Hopkins. They're going out and adding Jair Alexander. And maybe it's a little too late. Maybe their philosophy needs to change to where you're not just adding these older guys. But I don't believe that they're failing Lamar Jackson. And I think that this team as a whole, they are struggling, but I'm not overly concerned about their performance right now, because I feel like they're going to get it corrected. And the issue I would have, like I said, and if you guys can, and this is where you guys are going, if it's John Harbaugh, if he's the problem, I may not push back on that, because I think that there is a serious problem with them, how they play with the lead and how consistently this team just manages with Derrick Henry, with Lamar Jackson, with this all-time elite rushing attack, how they can't get it done with the lead. But I'm not going to fully buy into it yet, because I look at how the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions, the rushing attack, the rushing defense is phenomenal. And the Lions had a phenomenal game plan, not just for the team, but they corralled Lamar Jackson. And that's just my viewpoint. I think that they're not failing him, because I think that they're doing a lot that they can add to it, right? So that's just how I view. I don't think they're failing him, to be honest.
I have to wholeheartedly disagree.
Okay.
I think that this has been just an egregious failure, at least in the 2025 season. Okay. And there's a broader conversation to be had. I think that in the playoffs, largely, yes, I think Lamar Jackson has failed the Ravens in the playoffs. But I mean, I tend to be one who doesn't lean into tiny sample sizes like that. His entire body of work has just been elite football year after year after year. I wholeheartedly believe that Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in the NFL.
That's crazy.
I understand where our viewpoints differ to a degree, Malik. I think it's still a fair take. And I understand why people differ, but that's where I stand on the play of Lamar Jackson. But in the 2025 season alone, I mean, Lamar Jackson, statistically speaking, he has just utterly dominated everyone else. He is leading the NFL in most relevant statistical categories among quarterbacks. He's leading the NFL's number one scoring offense. Meanwhile, the defense is giving up 32 points a game. And I understand that there are some caveats there. They have played two of the elite offenses in the NFL. There have been some late game miscues and fumbles that have set up opponents for some scores that end up falling on the defense's end on when you're looking at the statistics. But still, for the talent that they have on this defensive roster, like they simply cannot be playing to this level. And then there's the other aspect, you brought it up a little bit, the John Harbaugh aspect. I mean, they're just not going for it on crucial fourth down situations. They're just punting the ball away. And against the teams that they've been playing, you can't punt the ball. Against the Lions, against the Bills, you can't punt the ball in pivotal situations. And take the greatest strength on your team is Lamar Jackson, and allowing him to do what he does in the pocket, extend plays, do things with his legs. And he is among the premier passers in the NFL as well. He has been absurd as a downfield passer in the last couple of seasons, and you're taking the ball out of his hands. It's just patently absurd to me that the miscues that have happened, whether it be Derrick Henry, whether it be the coaching decisions, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I think that, like you, I'm not worried in the long term. I still believe that this is the best team in the AFC conference this season. I think that you can talk about the playoff miscues all you want, and obviously when it comes crunch time, yeah, you're going to have that always in the back of your head. But top to bottom, I think that this offense obviously they can run with anyone in the NFL. And I believe, just given the talent on the defense and the fact that we saw this last year, the Ravens defense was horrendous to begin the season last year. And then they turned it around. Obviously they get into those track meets with the Cincinnati Bengals where they look horrible at times, but in totality, this was a really, really strong defense down the stretch. I don't think anyone's questioning the talent on this defense. You got a Kyle Hamilton. You've got a Roquan Smith. You've got Kyle Van Noy, who's missed time, and he was there. I believe he led the team in sacks last year. One of the more underrated contracts and signings in the NFL. And then you've got other guys, Odafe-Oweh, Nnamdi Madubuike, just a really, really strong defense, a lot of talented players. So I think they'll turn it around. But what we've seen from some of the other guys surrounding Lamar Jackson, whether it be the coaches, whether it be the playing, I just do think that this Ravens football team, their record does not display what the quality of the team that we're looking at. And I just don't think that that's a reflection on Lamar Jackson whatsoever. Lamar Jackson has been quarterbacking at a level that should have this team 3-0. Obviously the competitors that they've played factor into that, but it's just a really, really big disappointment as someone who just enjoys the game of Lamar Jackson. Obviously I'm a Bengals fan and I don't want them to be successful, but as someone who just enjoys watching Lamar Jackson play the game of football, it's a travesty what's going on in Baltimore right now. And I do believe that they will turn things around though.
Yeah, no, I think that looking at it, like you said, for me, and I agree with what you said. If we're looking at the sample size, I agree with you. Like you can pinpoint the Derrick Henry fumble, the first game. That's not Lamar. Lamar did everything that he possibly could week 1 to win.
There were 15 points in the fourth quarter.
And like, it's disappointing, but like I said, for me, the way I look at this too is this is a team that they're going to be there. Like if we have a different conversation, the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a big matchup this week. And if we come back after this week and Lamar comes out, puts up 3 tutties, no turnovers once again. The dude has 0 turnovers all season long.
9 passing touchdowns, 0 turnovers.
Fumbles, yes. Not.
Did he have fumble this week?
I think
he didn't lose any. He hasn't lost any.
Well, I still count it, but
fair. So if we come back after this week and they're 1-3 and Lamar plays like this, at that point, maybe then I'll really turn around and say, hey, everybody else is failing him. But at this point, I just look at the full sample size and I say, hey, there's been too many opportunities that this team has had, and even Lamar Jackson has faltered. But I agree, this team is far too talented to be a 1-3 football team. And that's why this week is a massive game for them against Kansas City.
I appreciate what both of you said. I really do. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a thing called selective stats, right? that is a very real thing, especially in our profession, where you can make a case for Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, maybe not Mahomes, but Mahomes, the accolades to all being the best quarterback in the league to fit whatever narrative that we are trying to fit. I definitely think being a more offensive guy, because he's a big fantasy player, Mike probably appreciates Lamar Jackson's skill set a lot more than everyone else. I think he's certainly the best overall player in the National Football League offensively. I don't think he's the best quarterback. That is a completely different conversation. I would even argue that he was robbed. Here, let me be very clear about something. He was robbed of the MVP that was given to Josh Allen last year. That was Lamar Jackson's most prolific season he had 100%. Last year. He was gifted an MVP in 2023, and that shouldn't have been the case, respectfully. But Lamar Jackson's coming off one of the best seasons, and I credit a lot of that to Todd Monken changing up the offense, doing a lot of things to help Lamar Jackson feel more settled. That all being said, he is playing great this year. His defense let him down. The defense struggled even last year, but it got basically crossed off because they were able to win these games in crunches. Basically, they were able to find a way to win these 1-score games, and that kind of took the pressure off of the defensive coordinator. But Zach Orr figured it out towards the end of last season. The Ravens defense went from bottom half of the league all the way to top 10 or top 15, one or the other. Their passing defense still struggled, of course, but they in their mind, they thought they went out there and they did things to sort of help the defense, getting a guy like Jair Alexander, going out there, drafting a guy like Malachi Starks. They thought they were doing moves. And to you guys' point, they are going out there bringing in veteran guys that we have not necessarily seen play elite the last few years, right? They are bringing talent to this football team. But to me, I think it's a very disingenuous conversation to have because we can't praise the Ravens roster construction all off season. In every single draft, we say the Ravens win the draft. The Ravens always find a way to get steals in the draft because they just take the obvious pick. They trust their board. They trust their evaluation. And they draft that player. We can't say that and then say, hey, you know what? They're letting Lamar Jackson down, because when we looked at this roster, we all said that this is a team that's ready to take the next leap. We've been saying for the last 2 seasons, but because they're not resulting into victories, guess what? That conversation has shifted over to, well, the Ravens defense's fault. And I get it. Players got to play at the end of the day. You can coach, you can bring the talent in. It doesn't help that 𝗦𝗘𝗢𝗪𝗧 has been out with an injury. We don't know what the long-term impact is on his injury either. We're wishing him the best and the most speedy recovery. But you know what this reminds me of, guys? I hate to bring it up. It reminds me of what happened with Joe Burrow last year. Joe Burrow was the best quarterback statistically last year in the National Football. He was better than Lamar. He was better than Josh. He's better than Mahomes. He's better than Jalen. He was better than all of these guys. But none of that mattered. Why? Because their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. None of that mattered. Why? Because the Bengals had a losing record at this time last year. None of that mattered. Why? Because the Bengals missed the playoffs. So what is going to absolve the 2-time MVP of criticism, constructive criticism at that, versus a guy in Joe Burrow that would have been squarely, he would have ran away with the MVP trophy had the Bengals been in the playoff contention? What would change that? And so my thought process is a little bit different. When you win an MVP in the National Football League, all eyes are going to be on you. People are going to want to know, what are you going to do year in and year out? It's the reason why my commentary towards Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and now Josh Allen is going to be drastically different, because those three, we could say Burrow, we could say all these other people, those three are the three-headed monster. Why? Because they all won multiple MVPs. One of them has won 3 Super Bowls. So the conversation is a little bit different. You're expected when you win most valuable player to do what Burrow has done, even though it hasn't translated into victories, and that is uplift your team. You are expected to be the most valuable player. And while it might not be fair to Lamar Jackson, the conversation wasn't fair to Burrow last year, guess what, guys? When your defense is playing this bad, your mistakes get highlighted.
Yep.
Your turnovers get highlighted. The offensive dysfunction gets highlighted. Holding on to the ball super long, allowing sacks, taking 15-step drop back. I mean, all of that stuff gets highlighted when you are a former MVP. No one cares about the intricacies of it. We all want to know, did you win? Did you find a way to gut it out? It doesn't matter if you have to pass for 100 yards. It doesn't matter if you have to run for 200 yards. Did you find a way to get it done? And I told y'all going into this year, my commentary on the Baltimore Ravens was going to be different this year. You want to turn on ESPN, you want to see them light up the same old teams they light up each and every single week, the Dallas Cowboys, the Giants. No, on this show, we're going to talk facts. We're going to talk football. I'm going to put a fire under these other teams that we don't talk about, maybe because they're league darlings or maybe they're small market teams. Let's talk about it. And I criticize every team in the league, including the Cincinnati Bengals. I criticize everyone, but I also give praise when it's due. So bullshit. Won't give Lamar Jackson a pass, because guess what? That is when the cameras, the lights are on you even more. You're expected to uplift this team. Your mistakes are highlighted even more. Unfortunately for Lamar, because his defense is struggling, guess what? He has to play perfect. And perfect doesn't just mean not throwing interceptions. Perfect could mean not holding on to the ball. Perfect could mean making the right decisions. Perfect could mean throwing the ball away. Listen, the magnifying glass is on the Baltimore Ravens. Not every team, not every quarterback can deal with this type of pressure that they're going to be faced with this year. Josh Allen so far has answered the call this year. Mahomes, But these are real things. I'm not going to give them a pass because, well, we all know that they're great. We all know that they're former league MVPs. We all know that's the rest of their team. We don't have the same energy for everybody. So why are we being selective? And so I say all that to say, no, the Ravens aren't failing Lamar Jackson. They aren't. They need their league MVP, 2-time, to uplift them. They need him to play perfect until the defense figures out their because guess what? The defense was in this same spot last year, like I said before. And the difference is they were winning these games until the defense figured it out. Now, doesn't have that top 10 defense right now. So what are you? Are you a defensive merchant? Are you a merchant of the roster that the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome and all these people, Eric DeCosta and Harbaugh built for you? No. You're going to get the same sort of attention. Now, that being said, I do believe messages run stale. I do think John should be on the hot seat this year. I do think the focus needs to be in on him. I know Ravens fans. I talk to a lot of Ravens fans. I talk to people within the Ravens. There are people that are tired of John Harbaugh. There are people that feel like his message has grown stale. Because guess what? Even though he's won a Super Bowl for them, the conversation shifts to, what have you done for me lately? And when you look at John Harbaugh and the Lamar Jackson era together, it hasn't been a whole lot, respectfully. So that's where I fall back on the Lamar Jackson is being failed by the Ravens. I understand the narrative. I get it. But no one cares for excuses. Did you win or did you lose? Did you find a way to win or did you lose? We'll see. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, the only question I have for you with what you're saying is, do you blame Lamar Jackson for how they're performing? And if so, and I guess this is what I'm looking at, like, do you blame him now? And do you blame Burrow for last year? Because I look at it right now, and I'm of the belief, like I said, I blame Lamar for the playoff loss. I think Lamar holds blame. For me, I'm not going to say he holds blame for this season because I thought he's played great. Okay. But over the course of the season, we'll see.
So I will say yes. I will say here's why. I don't make those rules. We make those rules. Okay. The industry make those rules. We get up on these shows and we get on all these soap operas boxes and we say, quarterback is the most important position in the National Football League until we want to give a pass to someone, until we want to be selective about it. We always say the quarterback position is the most important position. Why? Because guess what? It's not about your performance on the field. It's not just about that. It's about your leadership ability. It's about when things are running haywire, when it's absolutely just awful, can you find a way through all the shit to keep the team even keeled? Can you find the way to keep the team composed? Can you find a way to get out these wins? That is what we should be judging the quarterback position on, right? Not just what he can do when everything is great around him. I'm not saying that's what we're doing with Lamar Jackson, but I don't make those rules. We, the industry, make those rules. It's the reason why the quarterback position is the highest paid position. It's the reason why these guys get paid what they get paid. Unfortunately, when you're the quarterback of a team, you're expected to be the leader of the team. That's why most quarterbacks on every roster have a big old C on their chest. It's one of those groups is if you're a starter at that spot, you're just going to be slotted in as the captain. Why? Because it's expected. You are an extension of the head coach. You are an extension by default of the front office. You are the spokesperson of this team. So you carry out that message to the entire locker room. And when things hit the fan, the coach has to still focus on coaching the team. It is your job to rally the troops. It is your assistant coach's job to rally the troops, to get people up to play on Sundays. And when things are running, when things are not doing great, well, that's when you get in a huddle and you talk, we need to do better. We need to do more. That's when you rally the troops. I'm not saying Lamar does not do that. But what I am saying is the magnifying glass, unfortunately, is on the quarterback position. So again, we can't criticize one quarterback. And because someone has the personal accolades, essentially skirt around that. That's all my thoughts. And that's what the industry dictates.
So for that last year, you would blame Burrow, right?
Yes. Because there were points,
Fair.
hear me out. There were points last year in which I got on this show and I talked about him holding the ball too long. There are points last year where I felt like he wasn't doing the best in terms of with the game-winning drives. That Patriots loss was squarely on his shoulders. Obviously, it was a drop touchdown. There was a lot of games last year where, the slow start to something that is on him as well. There were a lot of games last year where he struggled to show up in the beginning. And maybe if you show up during the Patriots game, maybe the record looks a little different. Maybe if you don't fumble in that Chiefs game, which resulted in a touchdown, the record looks a little bit different. Right? And these are facts.
Totally fair.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't ask him to play as better as he did against the Ravens twice, passed for almost 500 yards both times. Yeah. You can't ask him to play better. But when your team is struggling like this, everyone's expecting you to play perfect. Everyone is expecting you to uplift this team in tough moments. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, you can't look at it. You cannot tell me, even though Lamar Jackson statistically has played great, if you're actually watching the game, right? And not from a standpoint of just offensive score. I'm talking about actually watching the ins and out every single drive. You can't tell me Lamar Jackson's doing the best that he can game in and game. You can't tell me 200 yards. There's all at the quarterback position. And I love what Tom Brady said. You can always do more. You can always do more. Just because your stats look good doesn't mean you did everything in your power to put your team in a winning position. There were several drives where Lamar held the ball too long, made the wrong read. There were several drives, and that is what I'm judging it off of. And unfortunately, that is not a stat that we can go off of. That's not a stat we can go off of. I can't pull up the film right now of that game. But trust me, the quarterback position is the most scrutinized position in the league for a reason. And it's for when your team is struggling, you're expected to step up. You're expected to put the team on your back. And it hasn't necessarily been that the last few weeks. But let us know down in the comment section what you guys think on this whole situation, on this whole conversation. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. Listen, we're running a little bit behind, but I want to get to our week 4 best bets. I'll rattle off mine really, really quickly, Daniel, because I want to let you get to yours really quickly. I love the Bucs money line this week. I think the Bucs beat the Eagles. I really do. The Bucs always play the Eagles tough. For some reason, the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts regime has struggled with the Bucs. They not say they haven't beaten them, because they have, but they have struggled with them. They have lost to them a few times. I think this Bucs team is a team that I really, really like. And I think that they beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I feel like the Eagles have been flirting with on the verge of death a little bit. They've been on the verge of taking their first loss, and they somehow find a way to just gut it out. I think the Bucs win this week. I also think Jalen Hurts scores a touchdown in that contest. But I'll tell you what I really, really like. If you are a 𝗫𝗫𝗏 fan, it is 𝗫𝗫𝗏 season in New York. Tyrone Tracy, I believe, the starting running back of the Giants, is out, injured his shoulder. 𝗫𝗫𝗏 to score a touchdown at any point in time in that game is plus 105. New guy at the helm for the New York Giants and Jackson Dart, right? Listen, they've got 𝗫𝗫𝗏's receptions at 2.5. Guys, scratch it. Throw it away. Don't listen to the prop that Vegas is giving you. Vegas is giving you at 2.5 because they're like, please don't go to the alternate line. Please don't go to the alternate line. Please. We don't want you guys to beat us. We don't want you guys to gut us. We don't want you guys to take our money. 𝗫𝗫𝗏 is going to have 4 receptions or more in this contest. Jackson Dart is going to go to him because guess what? This Chargers defense and their defense, according to Jesse Minter, has been a guy that has had his defense playing on fire. I do believe Malik Neighbors will be more involved. I do believe Malik Neighbors will have a good game as well. But I also think that for a young quarterback in Jackson Dart, he's going to be trying to trust his easy reads. I think he's going to be trying to go to his tight end, going to his running backs. I love Cam Scatterbo to have 4 receptions versus the Chargers until Jackson Dart gets into a full rhythm, and then he's going to able to, pass it down to his pass catchers. That's not to say this is going to hit every single week, but I think Cam Scatterbo is going to be a huge part of the Giants game plan this week. The Falcons line is not up right now because obviously you had the Jaden Daniels question, and then you also have the who's going to start, Michael Penix or Kirk Cousins, even though we know it's going to be Michael Penix. I think that's why they don't have the lines up just yet, but I was going to run for Kyle Pitts and going to run for Bijan Robinson. The last play that I will give you that I really, really like for this game, and I might be stealing Daniel's thunder here, and I apologize in advance. Drake May over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I love it. I like it. Let's go, Daniel.
Yeah, man, there's a lot I love. And once again, you guys can go to the Patreon down below for our full bets. But let me just rattle off a couple.
We should have our QR code up for the Patreon.
So scan that bad boy, and you guys will be locked in with us. AJ Brown, 100+ receiving yards. I'm bought in, man. The Buccaneers defense without 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, AJ Brown last week dominated. He is that guy, and it's simply, if you get him the targets, he's gonna go off. And I look at him, 100+ receiving yards. You're giving me plus 345. I feel like that is phenomenal odds for a guy that just did that last week, and for a guy that's playing in a big time matchup here. He's done well against the Buccaneers in the past. I'm a huge fan of that. Ladd McConkey is another one. Los Angeles Chargers versus the New York Giants. McConkey's been getting pushed down everybody's board. They're saying, hey, it's Quentin Johnson season. It is Keenan Allen season. Ladd is still the best wide receiver on that team. When I watch those games, I mean, you see his routes, you see his hands. He is phenomenal, and I'm willing to buy the dip with him. And I think this is the lowest you're going to get his line. I believe 63.5. I'm taking that. I'm taking 70+, especially against a team like the New York Giants. I'm not confident in their secondary at all. They got a phenomenal pass rush, but that's just about it. And when I look at some other ones, another thing I really like, I like the Chicago Bears money line on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. Maybe I'm just fading the Raiders, but I'm bought in on the Chicago Bears. And I think that the Raiders offensive line is a major problem. And that is the way you beat the Bears. The way you beat the Bears is by running the ball, is by controlling the defensive line. And I don't think that the Raiders offensive line will be able to do that. If you disagree with me, go on the other side and take Ashton Jeanty, because that is the avenue I would go at. I would go him to have 15 rushing attempts. I think he goes off for 75 rushing yards and a touchdown. But all around, the Chicago Bears offense will not be stopped by the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm a huge fan of the Chicago Bears. And one last one I love is for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am fading Trevor Lawrence. Give me Trevor Lawrence to throw an interception. He's throwing an interception in every single game. And just because Nick Bosa is out does not mean this 49ers defense sucks. They have a defensive player of the year candidate in Fred Warner. They have Michael Williams playing phenomenal. They have, the other pass rusher playing phenomenal. I am a fan of this 49ers team, and quite frankly, I am fading the Jaguars. He's got to give me one opportunity, and I think they're going to get that opportunity. I think Trevor Lawrence throws an interception. I believe you're getting that at very, very good odds. So those are some that I like.
Man, like I said, it's going to be a great day of betting. Daniel, Mike, do you have any that you want to get to?
Yeah, I can rattle off a couple of quick ones here.
Sure. Aren't your what is it called?
Grit bets.
Grit bets.
They're
3-1 on the year.
Okay,
Last night was tough. I had the Sam Darnold under, but on his rushing yards, that I don't know if you guys saw that play action play.
I thought you had over on that.
No, I had the under. Okay. He had a mile on a play action play.
Yeah.
Just took
roll
it.
Out.
Yeah. But this week I've got a couple of bets already down. I'll get to him here quickly. I've got J.K. Dobbins for 59.5 rushing yards against our Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, we saw them get kind of picked apart on the ground by Jordan Mason last week. Dobbins, he's looked wishy-washy in my opinion, but he still has a firm grip on this backfield. I think RJ Harvey is lurking, but until proven otherwise, it's a pretty strong it's a strong outlook for J.K. Dobbins week to week. I think it should be a favorable game script for Dobbins in terms of just leaning on the rushing attack. Another rushing yards over is Jordan Mason. I just talked about him. I was listening to a podcast earlier this week. They were talking about the Steelers defense. Instead of the steel curtain, looking more like the shower curtain, just looking absolutely atrocious. And Jordan Mason, he has been among the best running backs in football this year, just in terms of just not not shifty like Bijan Robinson or anything, or like getting out as a receiver like Christian McCaffrey or Devon Achane, but just consistent and explosive at the same time. I mean, last week against the Bengals, it really looked like it was 6 a carry for this guy. It was pretty gutting to see as a Bengals fan, but I got that line at 79.5 against the Steelers this week. They gave him basically every single carry before garbage time. So I think they're going to, with Wentz in the mix going to Dublin, I think they're going to lean on Jordan Mason in this ground game once again. And I like his chances to succeed. And the other one is a little bit on the slimier side. It is Baker Mayfield, longest rush over 10.5. Mayfield is one of the more underrated, like, pseudo rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. He has always shown a willingness to scramble and just pick up yards on tough third downs or just when it's presented the opportunity. With a depleted receiving core, no Mike Evans, probably no Chris Godwin, but even if he's out there, probably in a limited capacity. So receivers not getting open, a talented Eagles pass rush, still a makeshift offensive line. It's just a recipe for Baker to be getting out there and scrambling. He's cleared this line, I believe, every single game this season. Maybe week 1 it was 10 yards, but this is appointment betting for me. Anytime they hang it out there around 9.5, 10.5, I'm going to bet it. And I just like the situation for Baker to get out there and rip a long one this week.
Man, we gave you some plays. Again, if you guys want our full play, subscribe to the TWS and Patreon. We've already seen a lot of people profit a lot on our picks. I love getting the messages of people saying thank you for, this play. That makes me very happy. I got a couple of those last night on the Kenneth Walker over rushing yards play because those were way too low, even though his vision freaking sucks. So we appreciate y'all. Listen, UFC's back this week. UFC's been on a little bit of break, but I got to bring in my guy. I want to talk to him about 2 things. I want to talk to him about this whole boxing fight, gibberish fight that's coming up. But I also want to talk about some of our favorite UFC plays and, maybe his favorite bets for this card. My arch nemesis, hopefully we don't go against each other. Hopefully we don't go against each other this week. It's kind of been that a little bit recently. But without further ado, TWSN MMA journalist, Evan Theo Harris. What's going on, my man?
How we doing, Malik?
I'm good, man. We supposed to have your, we're going to have your little X, signature up there so people could follow you as well. So make sure you guys give Evan a follow. Evan, we didn't get to talk, man, ever since we went head to head again. What's up, bud? How you been?
Hey, man. Looking rough for me right now.
Oh man,
it was a rough look in that one. Got dominated in that first round. Referring to John Silva here. Got dominated in that first round.
I mean, destroyed. Like virtual 10-8 basically for me. Yeah.
I had my hopes up in that second round. Landed 5 or 6 great shots. I just didn't account for the fact that Diego Lopez has a granite chin, I guess.
He's a dog. He's a dog.
He's a dog. He's a
dog. So one thing I want to talk to you about really quickly, my man, while I have you here. By the way, congrats to your Commanders. The Commanders looking good this season, man. They really are. I want to talk about Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul. Obviously that fight is being announced, and judging by your face, you hate it. What are your thoughts on it? Because we're talking about a huge weight gap here. But what are your thoughts on Gervonta Davis, Jake Paul, my man?
I just don't know what this is. I'm not like the biggest boxing guy in the world, but like this specifically, this is just a bad look for, I think, the sport in general. I mean, Tank Davis is probably one of the biggest names in boxing. And he's fighting Jake Paul, who, I mean, Jake Paul is what he is. He's a professionally trained boxer, sure, I'll give him that. But like his record is, there's no real legitimate guys on there that I'm like, yeah, this is a great win for him. I mean, he's fought the washed of the UFC, influencers, and Nate Robinson. Like, I mean, he's fighting Tank Davis, but Tank Davis fights at 136 or something like that. Somewhere around 135, there. 135. I mean, Jake Paul fought at like 185, 190 in his last fight. I mean, and he fought Mike Tyson. There's another guy that he fought too. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know why from Tank Davis's side he took this, to be honest, because I mean, it's not a lose-lose per se, because if he wins, he wins. But
it's if he loses,
if he loses, that you lose to Jake Paul as like a champion boxer, and Jake Paul, if he beats Tank Davis, he's gonna say that, you know, he's ready to fight Canelo again or something, like whatever he's been trying to say now for years. But I just think this is a bad look for a sport that's, you know, already struggles, I think, with like lack of organization. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not a fan of any of these kind of fights.
So I'll say this: I didn't like it. You never like non-boxers heading into it, but I do respect the fact that Jake Paul has shown some level of love or interest into the sport of boxing. He is doing something that a lot of people might disagree with, and he's putting eyes on the sport of boxing because of his name, because of his influences. It's allowed influencers now to enter the sport too. I don't know if they're necessarily making the same exact ways, but this will tell you, if you have money, you can do anything. If you have money, you can make anything of interest to the public eye. Credit to Jake Paul for using his platform to continue to stay relevant, whether it's him doing Disney Channel or him doing music or him signing with PFL and then never fighting at MMA, whether it's him now fighting Nate Robinson and all these big name guys. And you think, oh, you're just an actor. You're a YouTube guy. I'll take you on. No problem. And it doesn't go the way people are necessarily expecting. But I look at it, man, and I say, Jake Paul has gotten a bit of interest around his name. The fact that Gervonta Davis even agreed to this shows you that they believe he's some level of a draw. All he needed was the perfect dance partner. Tank Davis, to me, isn't the best seller outside. I mean, he says a couple of goofy things like, well, he'll make fun of somebody in the way that they look or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, he's really not like the biggest trash talker. He's more so just a big name. And I credit Mayweather for really putting the world on notice when it comes to Tank Davis and giving him that platform. And I think that's a big reason why he is the next superstar, looked at as a superstar. But to me, I also think that this signals that Gervonta Davis is probably closer to leaving the sport, because you would only take this fight if you weren't taking your boxing legacy serious. You had a fight, a rematch, basically on the table, and essentially he kind of threw that away for this Jake Paul fight. And at the end of the day, you talk about Gervonta Davis being the face, or we talk about Gervonta Davis being the face, but I feel like Tank has a lot that he hasn't necessarily done yet in the sport. I feel like there's a lot of contenders he could have fought, a lot of fighters that he still could have great matchups with in the sport. His resume is a little bit shaky, to be honest with you. You could bring up Ryan Garcia, but that was definitely just more media hype than it actually was boxing hype. True boxing sport fans knew Gervonta Davis was going to beat Ryan Garcia in that fight. There's not too many fights right now that I'm looking at, and I'm like, doesn't make sense for Gervonta Davis. They got the Teofimo Lopez fight. You got the Devin Haney fight. There's Frank Martin fight, that rematch. Like there's so much more that I think makes sense for Gervonta Davis. This makes sense from a cash grab standpoint. But it's a little disappointing to see. We'll see exactly what happens with this fight. Hey, let's move on to UFC though, if we can. Obviously UFC Perth is taking place this week. I've seen a lot of people weirdly on the Dominic Reyes side. Let me just say right now, his career resurgence has been awesome to see, and I bet him the last few fights. Matter of fact, the last time I bet him, I won 18 grand. So I am a huge Dominic Reyes guy. I think that this is a little bit of a tall task. I like Carlos Ulberg. I think that Carlos Ulberg is coming up. I think Carlos Ulberg might be next in line for title contention, because this is basically effectively a title eliminator. I want to get your thoughts on this, though.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've been going head to head the last couple weeks, but it seems like that's not going to be one of those weeks. I'm pretty in on Carlos Ulberg on this one. I like Dominic Reyes, like you said. I have really thoroughly enjoyed his career resurgence. I really thought after Ryan Spann power jabbed him out cold that was probably it for him. But then he's won his last 3 fights by knockout. Last one was against Nikita Krylov. But I just don't think that Ulberg is on the same level of those guys he beat. And I think this is kind of a nightmare matchup for him. Ulberg is a pretty elite kickboxer. I mean, he just beat Jan Blachowicz in not the most entertaining fight in the world, but very technical. He does have very good power for a light heavyweight. We've seen it on display before. I just don't trust in a 5-round fight with an elite kickboxer that Reyes' chin is going to hold. I think that he's going to want to come in with his momentum that he's on right now, and I think he'll probably just end up getting caught by something by 𝗚𝗪g eventually in this fight. I do like 𝗚𝗪g by knockout at -125.
You know, you like him by knockout, but I heard his last fight, he was really trying to work on his grappling and really he wanted to get a submission. I remember that was kind of the talk going in. I've got a feeling he might take the path of least resistance here. I got a feeling he might try to submit Dominic Reyes. And if you were to take that, it's sitting at plus 1,900.
Wow.
I know him and his team were talking about him getting his first submission victory and all that kind of stuff like that. What if Carlos 𝗚𝗪g went out there, hurt Dominic Reyes, and then jumped on a guillotine or rear naked choke? Like I don't know. I keep, you know, I usually trust my spidey senses. I just feel like going into a fight with Dominic Reyes, throwing haymakers, expecting to see who falls first, even though he is a kickboxer, Carlos 𝗚𝗪g does get touched up. He does.
Yep.
I feel like I could see a route in which he submits Dominic Reyes here, man. I'm not saying that should be an official play, but I'm going to sprinkle it. I'd be lying to tell you I wouldn't sprinkle a plus 1,900 getting Dominic Reyes to lose this fight via submission. I think I'll take this. We've seen Dominic Reyes quit in there before. We have. It's not like out of the realm of possibility. But I do think that if he's going in there thinking, hey, I'm going to strike with this kid, I can outwork him. I think I can outgrind him. I can, because I've been in there with John Jones. I've been in there with Yambo. I've been in there with some really, really tough fighters. I don't know. Just my thoughts. Danny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think for this, it's tough to go against 𝗚𝗪g. The only thing I will say is I was kind of unimpressed, I should say, in the last fight. Maybe it's because I had money on the guy he was facing, Jan Blachowicz. But I thought that he was patient, and I think that's probably the thing that's going to suit him the best. So for me, honestly, I'm staying away. I think 𝗚𝗪g wins this fight, but this is one I'm personally just watching. But I think that 𝗚𝗪g's ability to just be very patient, I do think that Dominic is going to give him opportunities. And if there is a way that I like this fight to go, I do think a finish by Carlos 𝗚𝗪g, especially this being, you know, in the land down under. I think that 𝗚𝗪g comes out with the finish in a big way, main event. That's probably how I would play this for sure.
Yeah, I just think this dude is an absolute sniper in there. Let's get to some other fights. What are the fight that you're looking for on this card? Well, Daniel, like you have one. So what is it?
Yeah, I just have one that I'm extremely excited for. It's for no reason at all, but Bedoya versus Malarkey. This is two guys that I have loved just watching. I feel like both fighters, Jamie Malarkey's got knocked out in his past two fights. Both of them have kind of been brutal, but this is one I love Rolando Bedoya in this. Like, I think him to win by decision. He's never been knocked out. I think Malarkey could play on the outside, is a far better striker on the outside, but I think Bedoya at plus money for me personally, this is one I'm super excited for because I think he bounces back in a big way.
You know, Bedoya, I was really excited for him when his UFC debut.
Yeah.
He really turned a lot of heads. This is the second time out. He didn't look that great.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not the biggest believer in him. I don't know. I could see why you're excited about it, and it is an exciting fight. What are your thoughts on that fight?
You know, I actually really like this fight too. Like Daniel said, I think both these guys just like to throw it out there and throw down. But I'm taking Jamie Malarkey in this one.
Yeah.
I think he's got, I think Daniel mentioned it, he's got the better outside striking ability, and Bedoya is 0-3 in the UFC for a reason. I don't really think he's got the best fight IQ, and Malarkey's been in there with some tough guys. I just don't hold Bedoya to the same level of the guys who have recently beaten Malarkey. It's close for a reason. Malarkey's been knocked out cold twice now, but I'm going to side with Malarkey in this one at basically even.
And believe it or not, it is a fight Rolando Bedoya could win. It really is a fight in which he could win. One question I want to ask you, what do you think about Rodolfo Bellato taking on what's his face? Sterling. Sterling's undefeated, obviously, but
yeah, I got Navajo Sterling in this fight. I mean, Bellato, I think this is going to be a stand-up fight more than any, like I just, that's where I think this is going to stay. Sterling is the more technical striker. I wasn't as impressed with Sterling in his first couple UFC outings as I thought I was going to be. I honestly think this line is a little wide for that reason, because I think that Sterling hasn't been as impressive as I thought. I saw him on Dana White's Contender Series and thought, oh, this kid's legit. And then he came in, just been a little more patient than I thought he was going to be. And just hasn't been able to like wow me per se. But I'm almost banking on this one being the one that does. I think he's going to go out there. I just think 𝗏𝗏𝗏 keeps his hands way too low when he initiates, and he just likes to throw down. And I think that Sterling's going to catch him. And I kind of like this by knockout at +115.
Man, listen, it's one of those fights where, you know, we'll have to see how it goes, because I do love 𝗏𝗏𝗏's submission ability. It's underrated. And I also like his ability to get the knockout. You know, obviously this card is going to be interesting. I didn't think they did the best with this card personally. You got 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏 Petrosyan on this card as well. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that fight. Last fight I want to ask you about on the card is Jack Jenkins taking on Ramon Tavares. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that fight a lot. I think that one's really fun, but I'm thinking that Jack Jenkins might be up there for one of my locks of the night here.
Yeah.
Jack Jenkins fights a lot like the guy who just beat Ramon Tavares to me, Davy Grant. I think Jack Jenkins is just an upgraded version of Davy Grant. He's got,
depending on the night.
yeah. I mean, Jack Jenkins' last outing was pretty bad, but he's very composed striker, but he's more powerful and more accurate than I think Grant is. Grant's just a little more wild than that. The leg kicks of Jack Jenkins are not something to look past in this fight whatsoever. And he's a very good counter puncher. I know a lot of people are in on him to win this by a finish. Personally, I like this one by decision. I think that he's just going to be really calculated coming off a pretty bad performance. I think he gets this one done on the scorecards.
Man, well, listen, you guys need to follow 𝗦𝗡𝗢𝗪 again, lead MMA guy over at TWSN. We appreciate you so much, man. And make sure you guys also subscribe to the TWSN Patreon to get all of our plays, all of our bets, man. Ev, I'm sure you and me are going to be talking about our plays leading up to this, man. So hope that you have a good week of betting, my man. Hope your Commanders can also pull out a victory for you.
I hope so too.
Yes, sir. We'll talk here next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So again, that's 𝗦𝗡𝗢𝗪, man. Make sure you guys give him a follow. We didn't go head to head today, so we can rest assured there will be no trash talk. But we want to thank you guys for tuning into another episode of The Morning Show. Remember, The Morning Show is live every single Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. State of the Jungle is live Wednesday at 7 p.m. for all Cincinnati Bengals talk. And our Bengals recap show will be live after the game on Monday night. We'll be back here Monday morning to talk everything through. So you guys get us live twice on Monday. So we appreciate y'all. We appreciate you guys for making this a part of your regular routine. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, having the conversation, and that is the right way. We'll see you guys on Monday, everybody.
This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well, you better know now, because it's